that is here live on the session as well, and also to that is watching this by replay. Welcome. Welcome here to the Global Ed Tech Academy. Of course, my name is Vernon Wright, and so just honored and humbled and grateful to be with you all here today in this session. This, of course, is entitled Reflections of a Leader series. And this is a series that I have been so grateful and honored and humbled to have been able to share as part of the Global Ed Tech Academy. Such a wonderful cadre of speakers that are just talented in so many different disciplines and skill sets. And so this is something I've been looking forward to because it's an opportunity for us to really take all of those bits and pieces in each of the different sessions and bring them together. And as we bring them together, of course, the whole time, one of the lenses we're going to be looking at and looking through, and of course, I'll share this a little bit later, is how can we go ahead and take all of this information and create for us what can be a blueprint. So before I jump into it again, let me go ahead and say, first of all, thank you to everyone that is here on the call. Thank you all so much for being here. So honored to have you here. Secondly, make sure that you have something to take notes with because I will be moving at a fairly fast pace. Of course, you can always go back later on and watch this video, courtesy of Q and Microsoft EDU. And I'll be talking to you a little bit later about how to access all of those recordings. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started here. Let's see. Hang on just a second. Let me make sure that I'm getting the right information for you. All right, there we go. That's me. I think I know that guy right there. So, of course, as we get started, that is me, Global Ed Tech Academy. I'm looking over there on my computer just to make sure that everything is going well. And of course, you will see me, of course, throughout this session, just kind of glancing over and checking not only the time, but checking the chat as well to make sure that I'm picking up anything that is shared in the chat as we go along. Reflections of a Leader series, bringing it all together. And that is really my intent today with you all here. Again, just so grateful and so humbled and so honored to have you as part of this session, whether you are here with me live or you're watching this on replay. Welcome to all of you bringing it all together. And that's what we want to do. The 5 R's of effective instruction. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this with you before we really go a little bit deeper into what I am so honored and humbled to share with you all today is this is the series, this is the episode, if you will, the installment that really kicked off the series. And the series was really started with this. And so if you've not had an opportunity to watch the 5 R's of effective instruction, and you would say, you know what, Vernon, I haven't had an opportunity to watch that. I haven't had an opportunity to go back and see that. Especially now that you're sharing with us that was the series, that was the episode that really kicked it off. I would like to go back and take a look at that. Well, not to worry. Microsoft EDU as well as Q Inc. We have you covered. And of course, as you see there on your next slide, Reflections of a Leader series, of course, those are some of the different episodes. There are more episodes as well, but those are some of them right there. And so right there, as you see where it says watch at q.org/GETA recording, you can, with that link at that website address, that URL, you can go back and look at all of the different episodes at your convenience, whenever it is convenient for you, whenever it works out for your schedule and your life. Of course, today I'll be pulling from each of those sessions, those that are listed and some other ones as well that are not listed. I'll be pulling from all of those as we really go ahead and reach the culmination of this series. Of course, as well, you see the hashtags down there, hashtag GETA, hashtag Microsoft EDU, and of course, hashtag We are Q. So if you are tweeting out today about this session, I'll be talking about that here in just a few moments. If you're tweeting out, of course, tag me on that. Would love to hear how this has made an impact or a difference, and a profoundly positive difference in what you're doing. Be sure to, of course, obviously as well, tag me. Use those hashtags there. So this moment in history for our nation and for our world. 2020 is a year unlike no other. And no matter where we are, no matter where we live on this earth, we have all seen 2020 be a very, very unique year. And so I just wanted to go ahead and recognize Microsoft EDU and Q Inc. for their global commitment to equity and to developing educators worldwide. I've been so privileged in these sessions to have had attendees from, and I think we have one on here with us today, from Croatia, from India, from Egypt. I had a session yesterday, I had someone from Egypt, from Qatar, from the continent of Africa, just literally around the world. And so just so honored to have you all here. And, it's really Microsoft EDU and Q Inc. that came together with this collaborative vision, and they made it a reality. And so, again, shout out to them. Thanks to both of them, and kudos to them for really creating a professional development structure and platform that is reaching educators literally around the world. So, of course, that's me. I think I know that guy right there. Hello and welcome again. I am Vernon Wright. If you follow me on Twitter, you are aware that I am @the right leader. That is typically my handle on all social media, but I have quite a presence. I'm very honored to have a little bit of a presence on Twitter. You can find me there @the right leader. If you're not following me, would love to have you be part of my network of learners and educators, and would love to go ahead and learn alongside you. Of course, as we go through the session today, as we share and exchange ideas, if you would like to follow me on Twitter, again, I would be honored to have you do that. Also, too, if you feel like, you know what, Vernon, there have been some really great things that you have shared today during this session. I feel really compelled. I want to pay it forward. I want to share it with others. I would like to tweet this out. Feel free to do that. Would love to hear how the information that I have really thought about sharing with you all today has made a profoundly positive impact, and really what you're doing as you're getting the information. Would love to hear that. Tag me on it. Be sure to use those hashtags down there at the bottom. And of course, as always, to find out not only about me and my background and a little bit about my bio, but also that of all of the other speakers and really the whole concept of the Global EdTech Academy, be sure to go to q.org/Microsoft. So people ask me from time to time, who is Vernon Wright? We want to know, who is this Vernon Wright guy? And so one of the things that I have been honored and very grateful to have been able to share is really about the different parts of who I am. So there you see, I'm an entrepreneur, a speaker, of course, speaking with you here today, a consultant. Been very blessed and very grateful to have worked with different school districts across the country, really looking at what we can do to create just really fabulous and engaging learning experiences for students and their families and their communities, and then also too, for educators, so we can all grow, we can all advance, we can all add to our skill sets, because that is what allows us to make a bigger impact. We'll be talking about impact here in just a few moments. A life coach, that has been really something that has been an honor to be involved in, as well as I coach leaders one-on-one, and then also do some small group coaching as well. And a leader in the education realm have been very grateful to have served before in the past at different levels and in different roles. So grateful for obviously for all of the parts, but that part obviously too as well as a part of my previous professional background. So that statement at the bottom, I help leaders to increase their understanding of organizational dynamics so they can leverage talents. How many of you know that every organization that does great work, it's in part due to the talent that everyone brings to the organization. And together as a team, how many of you know you have to be cohesive as a team to do great things? They can achieve the extraordinary through synergy. So that really is the focus of my work. Everything that I do through my coaching, my consulting, even being a life coach, it really emanates and comes from that what I call my personal impact statement. If you don't have a personal impact statement, a personal vision statement, that's maybe something for you to look at in the future. So right now, I want to show you this picture, and it's just something for us to think about. Right now, of course, you see there North America, but of course, this Earth, this whole Earth, I should say, has so many different places on it. Right now, there's so many different people right now on this earth that are doing so many different things. And what I just wanted to say again is a thank you to those of you that are with me live, but also to those that are with me on the replay of this session, because right now you have made the decision to really go ahead and continue to embark with me on this learning journey and to get the information that will help to propel you forward. The next thing I want to share with you is you are light and you are energy. Absolutely wanted to share that with you. And that's just a graphic. You don't have to say anything in the chat. You don't have to make any comments, but I just want to show that graphic to you and really have you reflect on that and think about that. You are light, you are energy. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into that as we go through our time of sharing today. So in the chat, if you would, real quick, what does this image say to you? If you would drop in the chat, what does this image say to you? What does this image, quote unquote, say to you? If you would drop it in the chat, your response, that would be great. This is an image to give you a little bit of backstory, just a kind of a small mini story on it. This is an image that I have shared in different spaces and on different speaking engagements. And one of the things that I have enjoyed in sharing it is really the conversation and the dialogue, not only that it has brought about, but also to how it has helped us to really see and to understand what we are wanting to do and really about our impact. I don't want to get too ahead of myself and give away too much at this point, but I did want to go ahead and share that with you. Of course, many of you that are watching this would say, you know what, Vernon, that's infinity, infinite, endless, no limits, without bounds, without constraints. And what I would say is if your answer was any one of those things or something even similar to that, you're on the right path. So let's go a little bit deeper and really look at, of course, a guiding question. And if you have been with me on any of the sessions this summer as part of the Global EdTech Academy, you know that every session I like to go ahead and include a guiding question because it does really just that. It helps to guide our thinking throughout our time of sharing and exchanging ideas. And so really it's this: how can we leverage all that we know from the series to create a blueprint for success? Now, you may have noticed, of course, if you've been in previous sessions with me, that the guiding question has been the same throughout each of the previous sessions because we've been looking at student achievement and how can we really leverage these different things. Well, as we come to the culmination of this series, and of course, Reflections of a Leader, the series, and of course, this session is entitled Bringing It All Together. I wanted to go ahead and change up the guiding question to be something that really would focus on the culmination. We have all of this information. We've spent so much time together live in person on these sessions, and also too, we have spent time together through the power of technology and replay on these session videos. And I want to come up with a guiding question that would help us go ahead and leverage and move forward with that culmination. So something for you to think about right here. And if you're taking notes, this is a great place to take notes. Of course, the whole thing I think is a great place to take notes. The whole session, of course, I'm biased, joking with you there. But what I'm very, very serious about, and what I think certainly is a great place to take notes at, though, is right here. Just one idea. Just one idea can change your impact and your life forever. Just one idea. So as we're going through this session today, I want you to be thinking to yourself, where is the one idea for me? Where is the one idea within this session? Now, I will tell you what has happened this summer throughout the different episodes and installments. I've been very fortunate to be a part of and very humbled to have been a part of the learning experiences for so many that have interacted with these videos that I have come to learn and am very humbled to have learned that our attendees and participants have not only come away with one idea that was a game changer for them, but multiple ideas. So just one idea can make the difference. I want you to think about something real quick. You don't have to put this in the chat, but I do want you to think about it. When is a time that one idea made a difference and was a game changer in your life? I want you to think about that. When is a time that one idea made a difference and was a game changer in your life? I want you to think about that. So not only do we need to have and be in spaces where we can go ahead and get these one ideas that can be game changers. And again, thanks to Microsoft EDU and Q Inc. for making this possible for us to be able to go ahead and access those ideas. But also, too, what are we going to do with the ideas thereafter? Because how many of you know that a great idea is great, but if we don't do anything with it thereafter, it stays as a great idea with a lot of potential. For those of you that might be fans of physics and physical energy, or physical science, I should say, you know that sometimes in physics, we have two types of things that are talked about in terms of energy. One is potential energy, and the other one is kinetic energy. So how do we take ideas that really are potential energy and change them or convert them into kinetic energy? I want you to think about that. So, Microsoft Teams, just any session that I have been able to be connected with and a part of a Global EdTech Academy would not be complete. And this one session, of course, is no exception. Would not be complete without me just really saying how much I personally love Microsoft Teams, and not only the video conferencing aspect of it, but the chat features, the meeting features, the so many of the other different rich features that make Microsoft Teams so much more than just a video conferencing platform for video meetings. I will share this with you that some of you may or may not necessarily know about Microsoft Teams, but of course you see the applications there at the top: Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Of course, I'm sharing this with you today through the power of PowerPoint. And let me say this here real quick. If you have not used PowerPoint in a while, I'm just going to be very unabashed in saying to you that it's time that you come back to PowerPoint and see what PowerPoint has in terms of features, because there are some things in PowerPoint that are really neat. They're real game changers. So come back to PowerPoint if you haven't already, and I think you'll be very pleased and surprised as well, happily surprised. But with Microsoft Teams, the PowerPoint integration is built in. So this PowerPoint that I'm sharing with you all in this session, I didn't have to get out of Microsoft Teams and go into Microsoft PowerPoint to do that. PowerPoint is built in right into Microsoft Teams, and of course cloud storage as well with OneDrive. Of course, Microsoft To Do. Some of you may or may not be familiar with Microsoft To Do. I call it the sleeper app. One of the sleeper apps from Microsoft that some people do not know about. I have it on my phone, on my laptop. I have it on all of my devices, and it syncs. So, of course, you know, I mark something off on one device. Of course, it updates on all the other devices. Microsoft To Do, free app. So go to your app store, check it out. It is a great app. I use that personally, and I really enjoy it. Something for us to think about as we go forward is really this: when we enter into learning environments, are we looking to say yes, or are we looking to say no to the learning? And I share this particularly when I'm working with adults and I'm working with school districts and other entities, because when we come into a space of learning, one of the things that we need to be mindful of is, are we entering into the space of learning ready and looking for the insights, the new ideas, the new concepts, the new information, or are we entering into the session in maybe a way that is not as maybe primed to receive new information. And so I just wanted to share that with you. What do we expect from the learning? That another great question. If you're a leader and you're someone that facilitates different meetings, these three questions that are on this page, again, a great place to take notes, are three questions that you can incorporate in terms of what you do. What do we expect from the learning? You can ask people that. Of course, we won't do that here in the interest of time because there's some other information that I want to share with you all before this session is over. But what do we expect from the learning? And this is a powerful question because you're able to see very early on whether what the participants and those that are in the learning space with you collaboratively, you're able to see whether what they're expecting from the learning aligns with what you feel as the person that is facilitating the meeting, what you feel or what expectations you have. You're able to check for alignment with that, and that's very powerful. Do we have our own expectations before we enter into spaces of collaborative thought? We absolutely should have our own expectations. And of course, when we have those that are facilitating the conversations at a collaborative level, they allow us to go ahead and see, hey, where's everybody at with this? Are you expecting what I'm expecting? And some great dialogues that I can tell you before have come from those three questions where I've used those before in the past. You see a picture right there on your screen, and it says context. Context. I just want you to think about that when you look at that picture. And that's a picture, of course, of graduates. Context. And the reason why, and I'll share a little bit about it with you right now. One of the reasons why I wanted to really share this slide with you is everything that not only I'm going to share with you all today as a part of this episode, which of course is the culmination of the Reflections of a Leader series. Of course, this episode is called Bringing It All Together, the culmination of all the episodes over the summer. All of it has context. And so what is that context, you might ask, Vernon? Well, the context would be for students that are going to graduate this year. Maybe they're going to graduate from high school. Maybe they're going to graduate from college. Maybe we have students that aren't ready to graduate yet. They're younger students, but someday they too will graduate from school. So context. Context is really important. And let me jump out of the speaker role and jump into, if you've been with me on previous sessions before, really the instructional guide role, the instructional coaching type of role. When I say this, one of the things that anyone that is sharing and exchanging ideas with a group of people, whether that's one person, 100, 1,000, or 10,000 people, that we should always be mindful of is to either implicitly or in maybe a more overt manner, I'm doing this in a very overt manner because I'm mentioning the word context, is to provide context and to connect to the context, because that's really one of the lenses that is a main lens or a significant lens in what we do. Clarity. So as we go through everything that I am so excited, so absolutely excited to share with you all today. As we go through all of that, what's one of the things that I would like for you to leave with? I'd like for you to leave with clarity. That's what I would like for you to leave with out of my own heart, is clarity. So who are you? Now you might be wondering, Vernon, I know who I am. I know what my name is. I know what, my full name is, including if you have a middle name or any prefixes or suffixes or what have you. I even know what that is on my official government identification. Well, that's really not the purpose of this question, although, that is certainly an answer that you could give to this question. This question really is an important one and a significant one, again, that I've used over the years in different speaking engagements, because what it does is, once again, it gets us to think about some different things and to look through some different lenses. And one of the lenses that this has been so helpful with me on in working with different audiences and groups over the years in different speaking engagements has been getting them to think about what are their values, what are the things that are significant to them, what are the things that are important to them, and then, of course, talking about context and clarity. Who are they in terms of education? What are their beliefs about education? What do they feel are some of the actions and the things that need to be done to make education even better? So, who are you? And that, of course, gives us the opportunity to talk about identity. What does community mean to you? I want you to think about that. So, as we're going through again, the culmination of this Reflections of a Leader series, and of course, bringing it all together, and that's what we're doing here today. I want you to think about, what does community mean to you? And again, if you're taking notes, this is a wonderful place for you to stop and take notes at and really write down this question. What does community mean to you? What does community mean to me? What does community mean to someone else? Because that's one of the terms that we use a lot in education, but I don't know that maybe as much as we have the opportunity to do so, that we really stop and really ask ourselves, not only individually, but in spaces of collaborative thought, what community means to each of us. So there's an example of where maybe we're all using the same term as part of our daily lexicon, but we may not necessarily know what that term means to each of us. And so this is a great question. You could even, again, jumping out of the speaker role and jumping into like the instructional guide role, if you are facilitating some type of training or some type of PLC or other environment where you have educators gather together, especially if this is very effective in a small group. You could use it in larger groups too as well, but very effective too in a small group. You could start out with a question of this nature. What does community mean to you? Because we always say, and I'm reminded of when I was in graduate school many years ago working on my master's in leadership, we would talk about the community being one of the stakeholders. And so there's some rich conversation that you all could have over that. So what does community mean to you? 3 high impact levers for teaching and leadership. Want to go ahead and get into those real quick. If you've been on sessions with me before, you know what these are. You've seen them before. Number one is competence. And what I always talk to folks about and share with them is the correlation between competence and confidence. And so, if we would like for people to have confidence in us, one of the things that we can do to assist that happening and becoming a reality is to demonstrate competence. There is a significant, I believe, a significant correlation between the confidence someone has in you and the competence that you display. So, competence is major right there. The second one is communication. There's so many different methods or modes of communication. Of course, nonverbal communication is a major one. The next one is connection. How many of you know that whether it's something that you're doing in your personal life or your professional life, in both realms, anything that is great that is done comes together in part as a result of people coming together and connecting around a shared vision. So connection, that is absolutely important. So the same 3 high impact levers, but with a twist. Let's look at it with a twist. Number one is connection. Are we making authentic connections? So notice what I did there, jumping out of the speaker role and more into the instructional guide role. I brought that same word back, but what did I do? You'll notice that second slide that I showed you with the graduates had the word on it, clarity. So notice how I brought that same word back, but I added clarity. So connection, are we making authentic connections? Are we making connections that are aligned with our vision, with our school's vision, our district's vision? If you're not in education and you're watching this, welcome. These tenets, these aspects, these strategies, these insights can be used in other sectors as well, in addition to education. Are we making connections that are aligned with our company's vision, our company's mission? Any of the other things that we have aligned ourselves to or connected ourselves with? Are we doing just that? And that alignment piece is big. We'll talk a little bit more about alignment and some other things that are correlated very close to that. Number 2 is impact. I've had a lot of people ask me over the years, Vernon, what does impact mean? How do I know that I've made an impact? And what I have shared in terms of my working definition over the years has been this. And again, welcome to those that are joining us. live. Thank you. Welcome. So happy to have you here. I've added this over the years in dialogues and conversations with others about impact. If you have ever helped someone on whatever their personal or professional goals are in life, you have helped them in maybe one way, maybe multiple ways to have those goals and those desired outcomes that they have become a reality in their life. If you have helped them to achieve those things, you have added value. And let me say this, if you've added value, you've made an impact. Okay, let me say that one more time. If you have added value, you've made an impact. So the next time someone asks you, hey, do you feel like you've added value? You can think and you can say, well, you know what? Vernon gave me kind of that quick litmus test to ask myself whether I had added value. And if I've helped someone to achieve whatever the goals are in their life, either professionally or personally, then I've added value. And if I've added value, I've made an impact. Number three is scale. We don't necessarily talk about scale as much in the business of education, but scale simply is this: how can I reach as many people as possible so that they can experience the joy, yes, joy, Joy. How can I reach as many people as possible with the information I have and the impact that I'm making and the value that I'm adding? How can I reach as many people as possible with that so that they can experience the same joy that I've been a part of helping others to experience? And this really gets into this whole perspective or aspect of really dedicating our lives to helping others. And that's what educators do every single day. So connection, making authentic and aligned connections, impact, and scale. So three different lenses. I want to go ahead and share this with you here. Respect and value. Those are big. Number two, connection and stability. How many of you know in a world, in 2020 is a perfect example of this? In a world that really is changing so much, it almost seems like the world is changing literally on a daily basis, sometimes almost hour by hour, in terms of the different events and the different things that are going on across our world. That people not only need the connection with others, they only not only need the connection with other human beings, guess what else that they need? They need stability. So I want to ask you this real quick question before we go on to the third point. Are you stability for someone else? Are you stability for someone else? Because that's another way that we can add value. And again, if we've added value, we've made an impact. Are you stability for someone else? Okay, something to think about right there. Number three, a new vision. And that, again, the title of this session is bringing it all together. And that's one of the things that is so neat because it allows us to, again, take all of this information and the culmination of this series and to create a blueprint or a new vision. And so happy to really share that with you. Three more lenses. Let me go over here and check the chat real quick, make sure that everything is going well there with the chat. It is. So let's go ahead and talk about three more lenses for you. Again, great places to be taking notes at if you're taking notes. Number one, create and restore. This is one of the reasons why I love anytime that we're talking about creativity, whether it be for students or for adults, because our creativity, one of the byproducts, one of the outcomes, one of the products of our creativity should be what? It should be restoring joy within other people. Restoring your creativity has the ability to restore. If you are someone also too, another take or a different perspective on restore is this. If you are someone that is well versed, you have been practicing, you have been maybe even leading the initiative at your campus or in your school or grade level around restorative practices. The things that we create when, again, we talk about the restoration process, this is another place for you to think about this. And this is one of the things that I've asked multiple districts over the years with regard to restorative practices. You may be doing restorative practices on your campus and in your district or some other type of entity that you're involved in. But does everyone within that organization have a firm understanding of what they're restoring? So if we're restoring something, what are we restoring? And that's a great question to ask as you're involved in those dialogues. Replenish. This is a word that maybe we don't hear every day in our daily, or say or speak every day in our daily lexicon, but it's a huge one. And replenish is significant because, as educators, not only from the perspective of self-care, because that's typically an area that this would fit in very much so, but how are we replenishing the joy within others? But then also, too, going back to the self-care aspect, how are we replenishing the joy within ourselves? How are we replenishing the connection and stability within ourselves? And then once we are able to do that for ourselves and in connection with others as a part of community, because we've already talked about community, right? How are we then able to go ahead and reach as many people as possible and help to replenish them? There is that part about scale. How can we reach as many people as possible? So number three is flourish. And, really, if we're able to create, we're able to restore, we're able to replenish, well, naturally, what is the last part? The last part is we're able to flourish. And again, once we're able to flourish, what do we have the opportunity to do? Reach out and help as many other people as possible to do what? Go through the three steps there: create and restore and replenish, so that ultimately they can go ahead and live out the third step, which is to flourish in whatever environment they are in, to be able to make the biggest impact that they can make. And of course, impact and adding value, I see both of those as almost really synonymous in terms of a working definition. So, three more lenses again. Information. How many of you know that this whole series is information? We'll be getting information. But something that most people, or some people, I should say, do is they get information and then they really focus on taking action. And what I would say and submit and share with you all today is that getting information is great, but there's another step before we take action once we get the information. And that step really is this, and it's revelation. And really, revelation, you could even use the term epiphany, really a deeper understanding of not only the information, but again, activating that prior learning, some prior learning from our time here today in the session, really thinking about the context. So not only here is this information and all this great stuff that Vernon is sharing with us, let me stop and think about the context of whatever my personal situation is, either in my personal life or professional life. And how many of you know that sometimes what's happening professionally with you also has carryover in your personal life, and vice versa. So once we get the information, which is step number one, we go to step number two, which is the revelation or the epiphany or the deeper understanding, which really comes about when we think about the context of our specific situations. It's great to hear someone else talk about it, but understanding the dynamics of what we're in the midst of are really helping to lead or guide. That gives us that context that we need. And once we understand that, and we have those epiphanies and those revelations, guess what it allows us to do? It allows us to do number three, which is the application piece or the implementation. And so I want you to think about that. And here's something, again, if you're taking notes, it's a great place to take notes at, which really is this. How many times have you seen people get information, but they never really stop to do step number two, to think about the context and the deeper meaning and the deeper understanding, and they went straight into applying the knowledge? Now, there's nothing wrong with applying the information. That's why we share information with each other, right? So that guides what we're able to do and the impact we're able to make. We talked about connection and impact and scale a few moments ago. But one of the things that allows us to really not only shorten the time of us being able to bring about whatever the desired outcomes are, but really allows us to be that much more efficient, is the context and the understanding of not just the information, but how we should apply the information. Once we have that, which are steps one and two, we go to the application piece, which helps us to bring about the change and add value and make the impact. So what does it mean to have heart? This is one of the things that I talked about previously in this series. the Reflections of a Leader series. Of course, you see it there. And just want to talk to you a little bit about heart as we go through this. So, looking at the different building blocks here, and of course, you see the blocks there in the background. What building blocks make up what heart is? I want you to think about that. What building blocks make up what heart is? And I will share with you in the interest of time here, because there is some other information I want to share with you. But in the interest of time, I will share with you that as I have shared this question in so many different places, I have had others share with me that, you know what, Vernon, I think it's compassion. I think it's empathy. I think it's even being resilient. So many different things. It's being courageous. But those are just some of the building blocks. But again, if you're taking notes, a great place to take notes. I want you to just write down on your notes real quick what you think the building blocks are that make up heart. I want you to think about what are the building blocks that make up heart, and just kind of make a note to yourself as you're taking notes, whether that is, pen and paper, pencil and paper, or whether you're taking notes on a device, cell phone, tablet, laptop, what have you. What building blocks make up what heart is? What lens of the heart are we looking through? This is a great question for you to ask as well, because especially if you're in spaces of collaborative thought, because wherever our hearts are in terms of what we're thinking about, and of course, I shared with you all some of the words that have been shared with me before in the past: courage, compassion, empathy. I've even had some individuals, really say that one of the building blocks of heart is gratitude, resilience, things of that nature. All of those words that I have just shared with you all, guess what? When we are actively thinking about those words become the lenses that we see everything through that is in our lives. So, what lens of the heart are we looking through? Stand by me in real empowerment. This has been one of the sessions that, of course, all of them I have been absolutely honored to share in. This has been one again of those sessions. And so I just want to read this for you real quick down there at the bottom. Stand by me and real empowerment are about changing our lens. So how many of you know that as we go through so many different things in life, especially with 2020, as we are helping to not only inform, but to guide so that we can all make a great impact and maximum impact, some of that is really around, some of that work is around what? It's around changing some lenses of some people. And the lens allows us to see opportunities where we can actively live out, showing our support as leaders. Anytime you share your support for someone, that's standing by them, hence the term stand by me. And I want you to think about this too, about that term leader, because some of you that are either watching this live or you're watching this on replay might say, you know what, Vernon, I'm not a leader. I don't have a title. I don't consider myself a leader. Well, let me respectfully go ahead and say these few things and introduce these things for you to look for or look through as maybe a lens of leadership for you. If you've ever had someone call you up on the phone and say, I need your help to help me understand this, understand not only what it is, but understand maybe what I should do next as my next steps, you're a leader. And the reason why I say that is anytime someone calls you and seeks your opinion, your expertise, that means you have influence with that person. And if you have influence with that person, as the great John C. Maxwell says, you're a leader. If you have influence, you're a leader, and vice versa. Real leaders, guess what real leaders do? Real leaders, or guess what real leaders have, I should ask. Real leaders have influence. And if they have influence, guess what else real leaders are able to do? They're able to inspire others to do great things. So when we're doing that, it really becomes this collaborative vision as we're standing with and we're believing in the vision of others that we're leading and others that we're working with. And there's a cohesiveness that comes from that. And again, that's kind of where we get into that dynamic of seeing synergy really form and synergy be present. So stand by me and real empowerment. And of course, as well, bringing others into spaces where we can all become co-collaborators in decision making and making change. Real leaders in vision. Real leadership is well beyond a title. Let me say that one again. Real leadership is well beyond a title. It's about expanding the vision of others. If you're a leader, you have any type of influence with others, I want you to just kind of think to yourself, and you can even make a little note as you're taking notes here as we go through this session. And again, so honored to have you all with me live and as well to watching this session on replay. Um, Expanding the vision of others is what real leaders do, because you heard me share just a few moments ago that, the great John C. Maxwell says that real leaders inspire others. And if we're inspiring others to do great work and to do things that maybe are beyond what they have thought that they are even have even been able to do or even been capable of doing, well, that's expanding their vision. Right? That's expanding their vision. How many times did you have someone believe in you when maybe you didn't necessarily believe in yourself? Well, what were they doing when they were believing in you? They were expanding your vision. And so that's what real leaders do. Real leaders expand the vision. Vision paves the way for the extraordinary. I want you to think about that. If someone believes in you and they're telling you about their belief in you, and they're really painting this picture for you, which really is a vision, and they're painting this picture for you and this vision for how they see you and how they see you and your identity of doing great things and big things, guess what they're doing, whether they speak to it or not directly, whether they articulate it or not directly, they're paving the way for you to do the extraordinary, because they believe in your vision, maybe even before, or maybe even more than at that point in time, you're believing in your own vision. So great stuff there about real leaders and vision. Relevant, having significant or demonstrable bearing on the matter at hand. This is important. If we're going to be relevant, if we're going to go ahead and deal with the things that we need to deal with, guess what we need to know? We need to know what's going on. We need to understand what's going on. We need to be relevant. Being relevant is about not only understanding our story, it's about understanding the stories of others and learning the stories of others. How many times before in your past, professionally and personally, have you taken time to not only share your story, but you've taken time to learn the stories of others? That's part of what being relevant is about, because we're taking all of these different things that we're learning in terms of information. We talked about that a few moments ago on the previous slides: information, revelation, and application. We're taking all this information and what are we doing? We're learning about each other's stories and the commonalities, and we're relating that back to whatever it is that we're going through. We talked about activating prior knowledge again. We talked about a term there that fits in. We're talking about the context. So being relevant plugs into so many different areas that we have talked about even already. From darkness into the light, really taking issues and topics in a way that is professional and in a way that really honors the dignity of everyone involved in the conversation, is really understanding how do we unpack topics in education that really need to be discussed. And how do we do that in a way that's professional and in a way that honors everyone's voice in the dialogue, so that we bring these conversations and dialogues from these spaces where maybe it's not something that's talked about, to spaces where we can all give those topics the honor and dignity and the professionalism that those topics really deserve. So again, we can do what? So we can move forward and advance. What was a time that a leader that you know of took the opportunity to go ahead and really bring a topic from the darkness into the light, from the shadows into the light, and they did it in a way that was professional? Something I want you to think about. You can even go ahead and jot down this question as we go through our time of sharing here today. want you to think about that. And not only think about what they did, but think about how they did it. Think about how they facilitated that dialogue and those conversations. And then also think about what else. Think about after the dialogues and the conversations had concluded, how did they really do their part to be part of a collaborative vision going forward that talked about the next steps? What thing has to be present and established for people to feel at ease sharing about challenging topics? Well, if you've been with me before, you know that I've shared this one quite a bit this summer in different spaces, and it's really about trust. And let me just go ahead and say this is that we all agree that trust is important, but maybe one of the things that we don't think about or speak to as much is really this concept or notion of how do I start to build trust? What are some specific steps? What are some specific things that I can do to facilitate trust? Well, of course, that is a beautiful segue into and a great segue into this slide. Really, the wonderings of how can I do this? Like, Vernon, I want to do this. I'm in. I am really excited about it. But, is there a way? Is there a tool? Is there a specific approach? Is there something I can use to help me to do that? Well, those are what I call the big three questions. I've used these questions for years in many different spaces. And it's something that you can use to invite others into a dialogue, to learn about what's important to them, for you to share your story, and really to open up some dialogues that allow us to build trust. So just going ahead and really looking at that from left to right. Number one, what are you working on right now that you're passionate about? Great question. And as you write down that question and take notes on that, one of the things I want you to think about is, when is the last time that someone asked you that? Okay. So you not only have the ability to ask someone that, but think about this. When is the last time someone asked you that question? Great question there. Why is that meaningful to you, and what impact do you think it can have? Not only learning about what it is, but really understanding and learning why the person feels so passionate about that. And really, not only the impact, but really, again, as we have said before, if you missed that part, make sure you go back and watch that later on the replay towards the beginning of where we were. But really, the person thinking about how can value be added, and how is value added when this thing that this person is absolutely passionate about doing, when that's done, how is that value, right? Not only how is the value added, but for whom is the value added? Let me say that one again. Not only how is value added, but for whom is value added? Because again, tying in the work that we often do beyond the classroom and beyond the campus and really out into the community, we're talking about dealing with stakeholders, the various stakeholders in the community that are part of the educational process. What difference do you think it makes as it relates to the school or the district's vision and mission? This one is really good because it talks about being connected and interconnectedness. And that is important. In your world, who is that one person you can be totally authentic with? Everyone needs to have one. This is from the series I did called The One, the episode I did called The One. You need to have that one person. So I want you to think about that. Who is that one person you can be totally authentic with? Well, let me share this with you. Whomever that person is, that is the one person that can help us. Help us to do what, Vernon? They can really help us to see the root of an issue. What is the real root? And when we start to deal with things like implicit bias, that one person can help us to see what are the real roots of what we are dealing with. So everyone needs to have that one person. We talked a lot about that during that episode called The One. No matter where we're seated in our lives, our one person can help us to not only have a seat where we are and to understand where we are, but also understand the impact. Again, our ability to change, our ability to add value, to enact change, to be a catalyst, to be a change agent. That one person can help us to have a greater understanding for that. Who are you? What's your image? I asked earlier about who are you, and we talked about your values and the things internally. We talked about that a little bit. This slide gives us the opportunity to really come back around full circle and to really look at it from a technology standpoint. And I share this with you, those of you that are technology aficionados, if I may use that word here, that are watching this. You know that with a computer hard drive has an image on it. And that image is, all of the software, the applications, the programs, all the different things that make up what that computer has in terms of its operating system and everything that is plugged into that. And it governs what a computer does. That image, if you've ever had to have a computer repaired, you may have even heard a tech person say or use the term, we're going to have to re-image that computer. Well, the image is what dictates and governs what that computer does. So my real question for you here at this point, and again, a great place to take notes if you're taking notes, really is this: what image inside of each of us governs what we do? What's a part of that image? What applications, what programs, what things, very much like we would with a computer, what things govern what we see as important? They govern what we prioritize. Who are you? What's your image? Something to think about there. What does interconnectedness mean to you? Really, this has been very much so, as you all have seen throughout our time of sharing and exchanging ideas here as we really start to bring this to a close. It's been all about interconnectedness. That has been a main theme and a central theme, because no matter what we do, we're all interconnected. We're interconnected right now through this session. And here's what's great about the technology, again, specifically with what I am sharing with you all here today through the power of Microsoft Teams and Microsoft PowerPoint. And all of these slides, by the way, were created in Microsoft PowerPoint. The artificial intelligence, the AI that is built in Microsoft PowerPoint is just phenomenal. You definitely have to try it if it's been a while since you have come back to, or you've been away from Microsoft PowerPoint for a while. Come back and you will be pleasantly surprised. But we've really been talking about the interconnectedness. And the interconnectedness, we're interconnected through this session. And through Microsoft Teams and Microsoft PowerPoint, guess what? We're able to be interconnected even if you're watching this on replay. So what chapters are we writing in the book of our experiences in 2020 and beyond? What chapters are we writing? What chapters are you writing in your book? What chapters am I writing in my book? Well, I can tell you one of the chapters is definitely in my book for 2020, and that is Global EdTech Academy, again, brought to you by Microsoft EDU and Q Inc., because it's allowed me to reach you all and so many other people literally around the globe, for which I am absolutely humbled and honored. What chapters are you writing in your book for 2020? Something to think about. What does this picture say to you? What feelings and emotions does it bring up in your heart? And I'm going to share a little bit about it here in just a moment again as we close. I think that every single person, at least once a day, if not necessarily like this person here, the ability to sit maybe down out in terms of nature and to really look at the sky. If you don't have the ability to do that, to at the very least take some time to reflect each day, because it's really important for us to understand what's happening, but really to understand and to come back to who we are, and always to remind ourselves of that. When we, from the airplane view, look at what's happening, how many of you know that you can get so deep into what's happening and into what's taking place in your life? I mean, you're just, it's the details. Everywhere you turn, it's the details, right? How many of you know that it's really important to take a step or two back to do what I call the airplane view, which is really to look at it from a higher level and to understand and to really ask ourselves, just as you see here on this slide, what change are we creating? What change do we see that we have helped to bring about? And again, I used that some of those terms earlier, just a few moments ago: a catalyst, a change agent. What are some of those things, right? Great things are possible when we come together. Again, great animation from Microsoft PowerPoint with the AI that is built into the program. Again, I'm telling you, you've got to come back to Microsoft PowerPoint if you haven't used PowerPoint in a while. Some great features that are there. This graphically is one of those features. Really looking at what's on the slide from a content perspective, Great things are possible when we come together. But now switching to the visual that you see on your screen, we can come together, but if we don't stay together, guess what happens? What do you see on your screen now? Well, you saw those two elements really pull back apart from each other and separate through the magic of video and the AI that is built in. So, what about this, Vernon? Well, I told you earlier we looked at the word flourish. You see here bloom, and really one of the things in bringing it all together, the reflections of a leader series and the culmination of this that I want to share with you, that's so important is when we take all of this information and we put it together and we create these environments and these spaces where people can do their best work and they can feel valued, and we can help to replenish and restore and create this new vision. We create opportunities, multiple opportunities daily for people to bloom, just like this flower is blooming again. That animation brought to you by the AI as a part of Microsoft PowerPoint. It may seem like a maze sometimes. Sometimes you may say, you know what, Vernon, it just seems like I am in the middle of this maze and I don't know how to get out of this. Well, that's one of the reasons why being connected with individuals literally around the world, just as we are connected, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so humbled and honored to be with you all here live and on replay, is so important, because we may see a maze with no way out, but when we get connected to other people, guess what happens? We see the path out. We see the path forward. Over the years, all of the things that you have read, all of the articles you have read, the books you have read, all of the professional development that you've gone to, all of those things have brought you to this point. Just want you to think about that. All of those things. Before we can take a look forward, before we can move forward, I should say, we must take a look inside. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Daily reflection, it's key. If you're journaling, you're someone that journals about your experiences, great thing to do. Either, pen and paper, pencil and paper, or if you like to do that electronically. Some people even like to go a step beyond that and to even do a blog, in which they share, they not only journal and take note of their reflections, they choose to share their reflections publicly. Those are keys. Okay. Believe, speak, and act. Let me give this to you again. At their highest level, words don't just communicate, they create. What are we creating with our words? What are you creating with your words? Believe, speak, and act. What are we believing? What are we speaking? What are we saying? And then lastly, how are we acting? We're walking down this path together. Yeah, you and me, live and on the replay via the recording. Not just here where I am. I'm here in the United States, specifically in Texas, but literally around the world. We are walking down this path together. It starts with the first step. There are many pieces to leadership and influence. We've talked a lot about leadership and influence today. Aligning the pieces is making sure that, we really live out and we walk what we are talking. So important. Remember where we started out with this? What does this image say to you? We talked about infinity, being infinite, limitless, without bounds. And really, this is what I want to share with you in closing. There's no limit to the impact we can make. There's no limit to the impact that we can make. Real change comes from real dialogue. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to share all of this information, not only here and bringing it all together, but in all of the previous episodes and the sessions that have been a part of the Reflections of a Leader series. Because if this information that I have shared, not only in this session, the wrap up, the culmination of the series, but really in all of the other episodes of the series, if all of that information helps to equip you and enable you to, with honor and professionalism and with authenticity, invite others into spaces where you can really have that real dialogue focused on how can we create great futures and outcomes for not only students and their families, but for our communities. Remember, we used the term community earlier in our time of sharing. Real change comes from real dialogue. You are that light. You're the leader for that. Next steps, now what? Watch the complete series, q.org/GETA recording. If you have seen any of the other episodes on replay, you know how to get there, q.org/GETA recording. You may say, you know what, Vernon, I've never really seen that before. I haven't watched any of the other episodes. Now I'm really intrigued because I want to see all of the different parts that really brought all of us together here today on this, the culmination of the series, bringing it all together. That's the place to check it out at q.org/GETA recording. Capture your thoughts through the notes, reflect, and then create your own blueprint for success. Remember, we talked about the word earlier, which was context. I want to share this with you. One last thing. Heart and vision go together more than we might have thought before. I want you to think about that. Heart and vision go together more than we might have thought before. And lastly, in all that you do to bring about profoundly positive outcomes and experiences, not only for students, but for colleagues, for families, for our communities across the world, really across the globe, simply remember this: create memories. Create memories. It has been my honor and my pleasure to have been with you all here today. Of course, my name is Vernon Wright, of course, on social media, namely Twitter. You will find me on my handle there, which is @the_right_leader. I am so humbled and honored to have been with you all here today, not only in this episode, but all of the other episodes that really have been this Reflections of a Leader series. If you feel like, you know what, Vernon, you have shared some great information today, I feel compelled to share that on social media with others. I feel compelled to pay it forward to help other people. Again, as we said earlier in the session, to scale, to bring about joy, and to help as many others experience that same joy. If you want to tweet that out, I would love to hear about the profoundly positive change that it has made within you. Tag me on it, and of course, as well, you see the hashtags down there at the bottom. Microsoft EDU, hashtag GETA, and of course, hashtag WeAreQ. Of course, you see there, q.org/Microsoft, and then the session replays once again at q.org/GETA recording. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you all being here on the session. I am so honored and humbled to have been here with you all. This session, of course, will be put out on Q's channel, their video channel. Of course, the way to get there is q.org/GETA recording. So humbled and so honored to have been here with you all, and wishing you a great rest of your day as you go forward. And really, I want to say this: be inspired, be encouraged, be innovative, always make an impact. So honored and grateful and blessed to have been with you on this, the culmination of the Reflection of a Leader series, bringing it all together. Thank you for being with us on this session and all of the sessions.